Picture this. You finally do the responsible thing. After months of spending without thinking, you commit. You open a savings account. You set up a transfer. Every month, a little moves over. $100, $200, sometimes $300 when things are going well. You track the balance. You watch it grow. You feel, maybe for the first time in your financial life, like you're doing something right. Then one day you open the app and something stops you. You have $12,000 sitting in savings. $12,000 you worked for, transferred carefully, resisted spending. And the interest earned on that $12,000 over the last year is $61. $61. Less than a dinner for two. Your money sat in a bank for 365 days and returned you $61. And around the same time, you keep hearing things. Index funds. Compound growth. The stock market averaging 10% annually. People your age talking about brokerage accounts the way you used to talk about savings accounts. And a question starts forming that you can't stop asking. Am I doing this wrong? The answer is, not exactly. But not quite right either. Saving is the foundation. But saving alone almost never builds real wealth. And the path from saving to investing, the exact steps, the right order, the psychology behind why most people never make the transition, is what this video is going to walk you through completely. First, let's understand why saving isn't enough. Saving and investing are not the same thing. They feel similar. Both involve putting money somewhere instead of spending it, but they have completely different jobs. Saving protects your money. Investing grows your money. Those are two different functions. And if you're only doing one of them, you're only doing half the job. Here's the math that makes this real. Take $10,000. Put it in a standard savings account earning 1% interest. After 1 year you have $10,100. After 20 years, you have roughly $12,200. The money grew. Slowly. Safely. It never dropped. It never scared you. It just sat there getting slightly larger, year after year, barely keeping pace with inflation. Now take that same $10,000 and invest it. The S&P 500, the index that tracks the 500 largest companies in the United States, has returned an average of around 10% per year over long periods. Not every year. Some years up 25%. Some years down 30%. But averaged across decades, approximately 10%. At 10% annually, your $10,000 after 1 year is $11,000. After 20 years, it's approximately $67,000. Same starting amount. Same 20 years. $12,200 versus $67,000. That gap, $54,800, didn't come from working harder. It didn't come from earning more. It came from where the money was sitting and what it was doing while it sat there. And here's the thing most people don't realize until it's too late. The biggest wealth gap in most people's financial lives isn't between the people who spend and the people who save. It's between the people who save and the people who invest. You can save perfectly for 30 years and still arrive at retirement with a fraction of what you would have had if you'd learned to invest even a portion of that money 20 years earlier. So why don't more people invest? The answer isn't math. Everyone can understand the math when it's explained clearly. The answer is psychology. Saving feels safe. When your money is in a savings account, you can see it. The number doesn't move. It doesn't drop 8% on a random Tuesday because of something happening in a market you've never visited, in a country you've never thought about. It just sits there. Stable. Reliable. Yours. Investing feels different. Investments move. They go up. They go down. They go up again. And sometimes they go down in ways that make the news and make your stomach feel like something is very wrong. That emotional volatility is the reason most people never make the transition. Not because they can't afford to invest. Not because they don't understand the math. Because the feeling of watching a balance drop, even temporarily, is deeply uncomfortable in a way that the feeling of watching a balance stay flat never is. Flat doesn't feel like losing. Down feels like losing. Even when down is temporary and normal and historically followed by recovery, it feels like losing in real time. This is the psychological barrier between saving and investing. and understanding it is the first step to crossing it. The step-by-step path. The transition from saving to investing should not happen all at once. It should happen in stages, in a specific order, for reasons that matter. Here is the exact path. Step 1. Build a real emergency fund before you invest a single dollar. This is non-negotiable. Before any money moves into an investment account, you need 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in cash savings. Not invested. Not in anything that fluctuates. Cash. Accessible. Boring. Present. Why does this matter so much? Because the single most common reason people panic sell investments at the worst possible time is not because the market crashed. It's because they needed the money. A medical bill arrived. The car needed major repairs. The job disappeared unexpectedly. And because their emergency fund wasn't there, they reached into their investment account, often at exactly the moment the market was down, and sold at a loss they didn't have to take. The emergency fund doesn't just protect your cash. It protects your investments from your life. It is the wall between a temporary market drop and a permanent financial mistake. 3 to 6 months of expenses. In savings. Untouched. Before anything else moves. If you don't have this yet, this is step 1. Not index funds. Not brokerage accounts. Step 2. Separate saving from investing mentally. This sounds simple. It is simple, but it makes an enormous difference. Think of your money as living in 2 separate buckets. Bucket 1 is safety money. This is your emergency fund, your short-term savings goals, money you might need within the next 1 to 3 years. This money does not move into investments. Its job is to be there when you need it. Stability is the entire point. Bucket 2 is growth money. This is money you genuinely do not need for at least 5 years, ideally longer. This money's job is to grow. And to grow, it needs to be in something that can fluctuate, because fluctuation is how growth happens. The reason this mental separation matters is that without it, every time your investment account drops, it feels like your emergency fund dropped. It feels like the money you need is disappearing. The anxiety that follows leads to decisions, selling, withdrawing, stopping contributions, that destroy the long-term outcome. When you separate the buckets clearly, a drop in bucket 2 doesn't trigger fear about bucket 1. Bucket 1 is fine. Bucket 1 doesn't move. Bucket 2 is supposed to move. That's its function. 2 buckets. 2 jobs. Kept separate in your mind, in your accounts, and in how you think about your finances. Step 4. Focus on simple investments first. This is where beginners consistently make the mistake that costs them the most. They finally decide to invest. They open an account. And then they look at the options, individual stocks, options trading, cryptocurrency, sector funds, leveraged ETFs, and they try to find the smart choice. The sophisticated choice. The choice that will outperform the simple choice. The data does not support this approach. The majority of actively managed funds, run by professionals whose full-time job is picking winning investments, underperform simple index funds over 10-year periods. Most sophisticated strategies, tried by smart, motivated, informed people, produce worse returns than the boring alternative. The boring alternative is an index fund. An index fund doesn't try to pick winners. It tracks the overall market. In the case of a total market index fund, it holds a small piece of hundreds or thousands of companies simultaneously. When the market goes up, your fund goes up. When the market goes down, your fund goes down. No one is making complicated decisions. The fund simply mirrors what the market does. The advantages are real and measurable. Lower fees than actively managed funds, sometimes dramatically lower. Built-in diversification across hundreds of companies, so no single company's failure destroys your position. And historically, over long periods, returns that beat the majority of professionally managed alternatives. Warren Buffett, who has spent his career identifying exceptional individual investments, has repeatedly recommended low-cost index funds for most investors who are not professional fund managers. Not because he can't find better investments. Because most people can't. And most of the time spent trying is time better spent contributing consistently to something simple that works. Start with index funds. Stay with index funds until you understand investments deeply enough to have a specific, well-reasoned argument for why something else should replace them in your portfolio. Most people never reach that point. And most people who do find that the index fund still holds its own. Step 5. Invest consistently and let compounding work. This is the step that separates the people who build wealth from the people who understand wealth but don't build it. Consistent investing means choosing an amount, any amount, and investing it every single month regardless of what the market is doing. Market up this month, you invest. Market down this month, you invest. Headlines predicting disaster, you invest. Headlines predicting a boom, you invest. The amount going in does not change based on what the market is doing. This approach is called dollar cost averaging, and it has a mathematical advantage that is easy to understand and hard to maintain emotionally. When markets are up, your monthly investment buys fewer shares, they're more expensive. When markets are down, your monthly investment buys more shares, they're cheaper. Over time, you accumulate more shares at lower average prices than you would have by trying to time entries perfectly. Here is what that looks like in real numbers. Invest $300 per month into a total market index fund. Assume the market averages 8% annually, slightly below its historical average, to be conservative. After 25 years, your portfolio value is approximately $285,000. You contributed $90,000 of your own money over those 25 years. The remaining $195,000 came from growth. From compounding. From your money earning returns, those returns earning returns, those returns earning returns, across 2.5 decades of consistent behavior. $90,000 in. $285,000 out. The difference is time and consistency. This is the math everyone nods at and then fails to execute because of what happens emotionally when the market drops. The news gets loud. The balance drops. The instinct says to stop contributing, to wait until things stabilize, to protect what's left. The instinct is wrong. When markets drop, your $300 monthly contribution buys more shares at lower prices. The drop is not the danger. The drop is the discount. Experienced investors understand this not intellectually but in the body, because they've lived through enough drops to know that the recovery follows. The people who held through the drops ended up ahead of the people who paused. Discipline during volatility is not a personality trait some people are born with. It is a practice that comes from having thought clearly about what you're doing and why, before the drop happens. One analogy that makes all of this clear. Saving money is like storing seeds in a jar. You're protecting them. They're yours. They're safe. Nothing is eating them. Nothing is destroying them. But nothing is happening to them either. Seeds in a jar do not become anything. They stay seeds. Investing is like planting those seeds in soil. At first it looks worse. The jar was clean. The soil is messy. You can't see the seeds anymore. Nothing visible is happening. And then a week in, the market drops and it looks like something went wrong. But the seeds are not lost. They are becoming roots. And roots don't look like much until they become something that couldn't exist without them. The discomfort of not being able to see the process is the price of a result the jar cannot produce. Safety money stays in the jar. Growth money goes in the soil. Both are necessary. Neither replaces the other. The question is just whether you know which seeds belong where. The path summarized. 1. Build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund in cash savings before investing anything. 2. Separate your money into 2 buckets, safety money and growth money, and keep them mentally distinct. 3. Start investing small amounts now before the conditions feel right, because the conditions will never feel right and starting matters more than timing. 4. Invest in simple, low-cost index funds before trying anything more complicated. 5. Invest consistently every month regardless of market conditions and let compounding work across years and decades. Saving gives you stability. Investing gives you freedom. The earlier you have both working simultaneously, the more powerful the outcome becomes. The $61 your $12,000 earned last year sitting in savings wasn't a failure. It was the beginning of understanding that savings and investments have different jobs. Now you know the jobs. The next step is assigning the money accordingly.